Okay, seeing as if you've already seen the previous episodes talking about not only prehistoric biology and things that cross over into modern things, or things that are biological things that are a constant throughout the world, whatever, physics. um and if you've seen episode 95, that's about uh me talking about how dinosaurs suffer from diseases and health problems that we're all pretty much familiar with. So yeah, this one is therefore about some of our ancestors, hominids. Um, I guess I guess think people like Neanderthals had tooth problems uh, that they actually died from. For example, Cro-Magnon man most likely didn't, or if they did, it was less of a problem around their species, well, around their race, whatever race, I guess, as you could say. Um, but also the tooth decay, like stuff like the tooth decay and things like teeth and all that kind of stuff. It was especially prevalent in earlier hominid creatures such as Australopithecus, which lived in Africa, specifically southern Africa and Ethiopia, where the hypothesized cradle of mankind is supposed to have come. But that's murky as well, you know, seeing as, and I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit. Older species have been found in places like Germany and Israel and Turkey. You know, which I alluded to specifically about about a species, Graciopithecus freibergi, if I'm pronouncing that not badly at all or awkwardly, which was found to have lived in Turkey and Greece, for example, and possibly places like Croatia as well, because of they probably would have been joined. A lot of those places probably would have been joined at one point, in 7 million years ago or whenever, that kind of thing. So I'll yeah, since I've referenced that video, I'll link in that obscurities video in there as well if you want to have a gander at it. But yeah, Australopithecus and China's hominid, the Peking man, they suffered from tooth decay, probably because they weren't around the type of plants frequently that would have that would have taken care of their teeth, like for example, chewing bark. Maybe some of them actually did figure it out, but chewing tree bark and cinnamon sticks, like certain tribal peoples across the world still do, and I think licorice as well. I think licorice is supposed to be good for maintaining your teeth health. So yeah, this was this was the early man's tooth problems still continue to affect us today, and somehow quite a good number of them lucked out and didn't die from such maladies, although certain modern people do, such as, well, in a famous case which I alluded to in the previous episode as well, Hugo Boss, tooth abscess. So yeah, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and I will get on with doing the final episode of this week. Tyrannosaurus evolved specifically to kill other large dinosaurs. And that's a paraphrased quote from Kenneth Branagh, who narrated BBC's Walking with Dinosaurs. And that comes from the last episode, Death of a Dynasty, or Dynasty if you're posh, like he is. And this refers to, well, the subject of the episode. Hey up, it's your boy History Boy, and as I said, I'm doing a prehistory across different eras themed week. I suppose it's, in a way, I suppose it's not only a prehistory themed week, but a prehistory, like a biology and medical science kind of thing. Biology, it's biology really. And whatever the study of diseases is. I forget what it's called. It's something to do with maladies. I forget. You know, if anyone watching who will watch this eventually wants to, if I can't be asked looking it up, or forget to look it up, or don't come up with the scientific term for the study of diseases, then feel free to comment, basically. So, and yeah, the dinosaurs, they actually developed diseases that are around now: cancers, brain tumors, arthritis. But in Tyrannosaurus's case, in the case of this one, Sue the Tyrannosaurus, which was written about in an article by the New York Post in 1997, and you can still read that online, and I'm gonna link that. But she had gout, and gout is to do with I'm pretty sure that it's notable in T-Rex's case because of how they evolved and what kind of things they ate. They basically had a rich, bloody kind of protein and I guess carby diet. They needed all that meat and stuff to convert to some kind of carbs to keep them going. And as I quoted the Kenneth Branagh thing, they specialised in killing huge dinosaurs. So one T-Rex would have probably feasted for hours, like one of Henry VIII's banquets, but just all, think of it like some kind of Edmontosaurus or Iguanodon type thing instead of rook pie and sweet chicken and all that kind of stuff that Henry VIII would have had, which and wine. In fact, I think Tyrannosaurus actually ate fermented grapes too. I think grapes were around. Grapes are ancient. In another series, Walking with Beasts, or if you're from the other side of the pond, well, America specifically, the Canadians probably call it by the original title, I imagine, but Walking with Prehistoric Monsters. In the first episode, which is set in Germany, there were Propaleotherium, which were like proto horses, and they would frequently get drunk on fermented grapes. So they were basically drinking wine without not know you know millions of years before people knew what wine was, or even people were around. That's debatable too, but whatever. But yeah, poor T Rex had gout. Would have had the poor thing would have, they already had already had hard lives. As far as like the raising the young went, so she would have had like bad toes. She had a myriad of other health problems like possibly tooth decay and stuff like that. But the main issue is the gout, is the main topic of this episode's conversation, if you can call it a conversation. It potentially will be if someone comments, but yeah. So that's it, basically, for sad state Sue the Tyrannosaurus Rex, who mercifully died of something else rather than gout and a tooth infection. But maybe the tooth infection killed her, like what happened to Hugo Boss allegedly, and possibly Jacob Marley in Christmas Carol, because he has the bandage around his face, like a tooth abscess. That could have been anything from tooth abscess to a brain tumor, which is what happened to iguanodons and stuff. I remember watching a thing years ago where a young iguanodon or something similar partnered with an old iguanodon who had bouts of senility because of the brain tumor, stuff like that. It was quite good. I remember the program, but yeah. Let's just end this before I digress further. And remember to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll be obviously with you with the other two episodes. So, peace. Hello, Ayup, greetings, all that stuff. Yep, it's that time of the week. It's Fun Facts with Liam for Fun Facts in separate video segments every Friday. And I was trolling around, and this is sort of, I guess, like an unintentional stealth joke as well, given the subject of the episode and the kind of creature I'm going to talk about. But basically, before I get to it, last night I was looking around for, I guess you could say, yeah, it was basically a prehistoric themed week, but looking into, yeah, obviously, I mean, I like to find the obscure stuff and things people don't always talk about, I guess, which fits into obscure, but I'll get to it. So, paleontologists, scientists, all that work in the field, like paleontology and stuff like that, they discovered years ago a species of very old fish. Like, I guess you could say it's primordial even, because they go back. These fish go back to, and I think some of their relatives are still alive today, but not themselves. It's like the kind of Neanderthal Cro-Magnon difference with us. But they found, and it's a fitting name. They found the fish that, quotations, invented sexual intercourse, and given how fish are and everything like that, they might have actually done it for like experimentation and because they liked it. And this fish from at least 385 million years ago that was found in lakes in Scotland, Estonia, and China is called Microbrachius dickey. Bit of a ha ha, you said dick, kind of joke there, I guess, or somebody can make. Um, but more than likely, it was just named after the bloke who discovered it, or them. Um, After a Dick, it'd be like Dicky, a bit like probably the ones that were discovered first were probably the ones in the Orkney Islands in Scotland, and I'm thinking that the scientist who discovered them, or it was named after or whatever, was Scottish, because I think Dick is an old kind of localized Scottish name. Used to be very popular at one point, I think. Like like the actress Kate Dickey, with which has an E at the end rather than I. But I think there might be a rule. I think there might be a rule in the paleontology world that with E's and I's, you take one or the other out, or you take the E out. Because it's like they either use Latin or Greek as a basis, and I think maybe Greek. They think along lines of that classification way of like the Greeks didn't have A's. Maybe that's my little theory there, but out of the way, But it got me thinking that because there are actually gay animals, which it makes me think regarding this type of fish, where there are many fish species who are experimental and into same sex things. It seems to be like an ancient sea animal thing or water animal thing. So I'm thinking not only did uh, um, Microbrachius dickey, um, you know, as far as paleontologists know, were the first known animals to sexually reproduce. They probably, you know, they probably did it for fun, and also they probably also when they were bored. Because I imagine some fish species, even though they're probably not as advanced intelligently as us and a myriad of other animals or whatever. It depends. It's all relative and based on study and everything like that, observational study. But yeah, I'm thinking there were such things as um, Kanye West. I mean, yeah, gay fish. Um, at least 385 million years ago, because why not? I think they're also intelligent and perceptive enough to on that note understand intimacy and appreciate intimacy, and because I've seen loads of pictures of these, and they're all in kind of schools or groups, these primordial fish. So they probably not only were they the first animals to potentially appreciate intimacy and intercourse and all that, they also in the intimacy kind of not to relate to the intimacy thing. They probably also established family units. So they were probably also the first known animals to have family units that cared about each other. So yeah, that was yeah, not enough. Put my tongue back. Put your tongue back in your mouth, descendant of James and Charles. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna finish up there. You know, as Roger the Alien says, "Mama more money, mama more speech therapy, and all that." But when I psych myself up for stuff, it's not really psyching myself up. It's more like me trying to avoid wittering on and digressing a lot, like a like a Sheldon Cooper or Spencer Reid or whatever. But yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll do all the rest of these, of course, today because that's just how it is. I promise to do something and I do it. I set out a schedule, whichever you prefer. And yeah, I'll see you in episodes 95, 96, and 97. Because this is 94 so far. Wow, I'm getting close to 100. For some reason that's vaguely exciting to me. So yeah, TTFN Tata for now, as Tigger says.
See the yellow eye shine in the forest. As wolves farther away, if they come in closer, their eyes will shine green.
Spot. It's going to be...
Alright, muckers. This is that time of week. Fun Facts with Liam for Fun Facts in one at a time episodes, segments every Friday. And today we're going to be talking about, for this first episode, we're going to be talking about hyenas. But yeah, like an ancestor of hyena, or hyenas we know. So I was going to sort of include or do an episode on the hyena don. Because there's been disputed claims about it being related to or being an ancestor of the hyenas, but actually no, this is the hyena don. Just to get that out of the way, is supposed to be the closest living relative to the hyenodon, which I learned about in Walking with Beasts, or as it's called in America, Walking with Prehistoric Monsters. Because if they'll need to do that with titles of things, which is kind of annoying sometimes. Where it's hyenodon's closest living relative is the pangolin, which looks nothing like it, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, if whales, instances of whales used to be wolf-like things, and shrew type things, then why not? I mean, the same cases for the hyrax, being related to evolutionary wise or evolutionary wise, whichever, cousins and all that kind of ancestral cousins related to all the the pachyderm line. Elephants, basically. Elephants, mammoths, mastodons, Dinotherium, one of the earliest ones, from like Ethiopia. And speaking of Ethiopia, I mean, like, yeah, as you'll kind of see if you've seen my my personal playlist that is an LJREP, that the E in that's James Roberts' eclectic playlist, and eclectic is just wildly varied. But I decided to make my own kind of mixes of things, and I was thinking of doing like a cover of a song one day, sometime in the near future. But that's for another time and another subject, and so on and so forth. But yeah, the Ethiopian hyenas. I saw like a documentary thing. I think it was like a travel log. Can't remember if it was like Rick Stein or Louis Theroux, but yeah, you have people who, make like a living through being street performers feeding and taming hyenas. They're quite common. Hence the joke of my playlist EAO, Ethiopian Apple Orchard, and I made a joke about someone on the site Kiwi Farms who's got like a avatar of a hyena. But let's get to the subject of this matter. So the Ice Age was a even to kind of towards the back end of the Ice Age, where man started getting more savvy through the Ice Age and realised they didn't just have to brutally survive through it, but they still had to put up with things like, bears, wolves, lions as cave. Like there were cave lions, wolves. The wolves being dire wolves, which I'm sure you all know about. The whole, resurrecting them. It's not. It's basically wannabe Jurassic Park style bullshit as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, it's one of those things where hyenas still live on, but they're pretty much all their, let's say, cousins, for layman's terms or scientific terms. They're pretty much all dead around the world or just settled, in just Africa, because there's their cousins, their ancestors, whatever, were the cave hyenas, and they were mostly known to live in Britain, in France, in Belgium, and as far as Siberia, China, and even Spain. There's loads of study and like cave paintings in Siberia and France and Spain, where they have like reconstructions in museums of the Eurasian cave hyena. But there's also like proper Asian cave hyenas, that's like the ones that live in China, and also some of them even went as far as the Middle East. So like I guess like Afghanistan and Israel and all that. So yes, it's one of those fascinating things to me where it seems like misplaced wildlife, almost by association. You mean you look at hyenas and you think it's stereotypically African animal, but a million to like even probably 10,000 years ago, they were knocking around Europe and what's now UK and so on, and the Mediterranean, even the Middle East, which is probably how the surviving ones, their descendants, ancestors, whatever, probably it's ancestors of ones today probably settled. They probably settled first in Ethiopia, to be honest. Given geographical journeys and migrations of things and so on. So yeah, not really much else to say about that. To run the risk of rambling on. But yeah, so this was the first episode of this week's Fun Facts with Liam. And I'll see you in the second one. Right, so this is episode 2 of this week, straight after the Henry VIII one. And yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that, for example, or whatever I'm rambling about, that koalas aren't bears, because people still like to call them koala bears. I mean, everybody knows that's inaccurate now, but I think some people still affectionately call them koala bears, like teddy bears. But actually, there's never been bears in Australia ever. Not even relatives of theirs. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, maybe there weren't bears in New Guinea either, because they would have, or Madagascar, for example, where a lot of the marsupials came from in prehistoric times, and then when the Aborigines came from like New Guinea and some Polynesia, which probably involved the Maoris, where they came from much later on than the Aborigines. Aborigines have been around at least 50,000 years in Indonesia and Australia and New Guinea, and Maoris as descended or relatives of Polynesian, kind of Samoan, Hawaiian peoples who then settled in the Antilles, which is the region that Australia and New Zealand and Tonga and Tuvalu and Nauru and are all kind of near or within. So yeah, there was the whole thing of them being the first people to in either ever or a very, very long time to settle there when there were no other people. But no bears down under. Presumably never were. There's been bears in pretty much all over like Europe and Asia and Eurasia and North America. I think it's obscure bear species a lot further away, like in South America, that keep to themselves, for example, not big grizzly type things, but I think most of, as like fun facts, I think most of the bears that you see in like gladiator films, probably true that were probably they probably weren't. They were probably less likely to be from, like, for example, modern day Canada, but maybe Greeks traded with them, because there's a theory that the Greeks also might have come across Canada, or at least one of them did, circumnavigated the globe, and the same guy who may have found Australia and Antarctica as well. But those bears were probably likely from modern day Great Britain, Spain, France, Andorra, kind of big woodland areas. Depending on the timeline, there were probably loads of bears in probably a shitload of them in, say, modern day Northern Ireland and Scotland, maybe on the Scottish borders, and in England, Northumbria and stuff. Maybe not in Wales, but yeah, those were probably from more nearby to them, to Rome, modern day Italy. So yeah, there's never been any bears down under, and actually there used to be bears in Africa. There was the Atlas bear, I think surnamed because they lived within or near the Atlas Mountains in South Africa. That's me trying to kind of do a South African inflection. A little bit. Or pronounce it like a South African. Maybe it says something about some ancestry I don't know about, but yeah, they went extinct quite recently, for what you'd think. To say that many people haven't heard of bears in Africa, they went extinct around 1900. So yeah, that's yeah. So yeah, just to wrap this up, like, subscribe, comment, blah blah blah, and I'll see you in the third episode. I'm naming these so I keep track of the episodes that I'm doing. So this is the second one, and I will shut my gob and upload this, and see you in the next one, in the penultimate one of this week. Hello and welcome to that time of the week. Yes, it's History Boys Fun Facts. Well, Fun Facts with Liam. Sorry, I've been drinking a bit. Anyway, yeah, just so people know, I'm not an alcoholic. Anyway, had that out of the way. Yeah, it's that time of the week, Friday. Fun facts, all in one at a time. Videos, 4 videos in total. Yeah, fun facts every Friday. So yeah, episode 1 of this week is going to be about Neanderthals, or rather, what they did, the professions and stuff like that. Now, of course, there's been this long-standing stereotype that Neanderthals were like barbarian, nomadic, thick kind of peoples, but kind like I mentioned in my cave lion episode of Obscurities, they were actually quite an innovative bunch, really strong, but basically lack of wanting to go anywhere, and inbreeding and stuff like that, and also on a quotation marks pure species kind of level. They kind of bred themselves out by some of them. Well, I say some of them in comparison to the millions of Neanderthals there probably were. Probably tens of thousands of them interbred with other mankind subspecies. So yeah, the purity thing, they kind of died out that way, and also there was disease and stuff, because they also say that people who suffer from bad habits like smoking, drinking, have diabetes, have anxiety, curly hair, all the rest of it, it's supposed to be partly Neanderthal traits. So thanks, great 50 times, 500 times granddad and grandma. So yeah, so this is probably the true oldest profession. Now, of course, some of you may joke that all know the oldest profession, wink wink, nudge nudge, as they say in Monty Python. But I think it was it Eric Idle? Yeah, I think it was Eric Idle that did that bit. Anyway, but actually, it's basically the oldest profession apart from discounting early proto-farming, probably with the Australopithecus and looking for roots and tubers in the soil. Foraging. Actually, foraging. Yeah, foraging. Foraging is probably the oldest profession, but one of the oldest, or the second oldest, would be the butcher trade. And it's a nice coincidence that I'm talking about the butcher's trade, because I've been watching a quite a good Blighty series that's on every now and again. You can catch up on Together TV for those of you from this neck of the woods and probably Ireland, and I'm not sure if you get it elsewhere, maybe Australia or something like that, and New Zealand and South Africa and maybe Canada. I don't know, but yeah, Together TV is that farm series where it's different time periods of how farmers, lived, and it's quite interesting. And there was a butchery bit in Edwardian Farms episode today, where it was quite satisfying to watch. Especially it wasn't like a local butcher's thing. It was actually depicting what some of the men did on farms in those days, where they would cut up their own livestock. Anyway, butchery as a practice arguably goes back at least 70,000 years, when some of the earliest Neanderthals were around, and I'll obviously include all the source stuff of where I get this from and so on and so forth. But archaeologists sometime discovered a kind of a community kind of pit, kind of it's somewhere in a cave network, outside a cave network in Poland, and they figured out that they were basically like essentially a butcher's shop. They where they arguably sold cuts of mammoth meat, woolly rhino meat. I'm not sure if they probably might have killed bears, but mostly big herbivore animals. So, and when I was reading this, it kind of rang a vague bell. There was something similar on some DMAX or Quest thing where they were studying the lives of Neanderthals and tombs and stuff like that. And it may have been in Poland, it may have been in America somewhere, just anywhere where, or Germany, somewhere like that, or even somewhere in Siberia, Asia kind of area, just anywhere where early modern man kind of set up a kind of like a workshop, which is like is the subject of this episode. So it turns out being a butcher is one of the oldest professions there is. Goes back tens and tens of thousands of years before any recorded history we could find. Because, like I say in one of my playlists, prehistory is still history. Always has been. So, that's pretty much it for episode 1 of this week of Fun Facts with Liam. And remember to subscribe, like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to be doing the second episode shortly after this. Peace.